You know, there's something about nighttime that makes the world feel different. Streets that seem harmless during the day suddenly take on an eerie, foreboding atmosphere. Maybe it's the quiet, the darkness, or just the way your mind fills in the blanks. But for the people in today's stories, their late-night trips turned into terrifying encounters they'll never forget. If you enjoy real-life scary stories, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. I've got 3 spine-chilling tales lined up for you tonight, so buckle up, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. Story 1. The Flickering Light in the Fog. Mike had always considered himself a cautious driver, especially during late-night shifts when exhaustion and isolation could make even the most mundane roads feel ominous. He was no stranger to the quiet solitude of rural highways. After all, he lived in a small town, surrounded by dense forests and winding roads that seemed to stretch endlessly under the pale glow of the moon. It was a cold November evening, and the fog had rolled in thick and fast as Mike wrapped up his late shift at the factory. He was tired, bone-tired, but the thought of being home, wrapped in a blanket with a cup of tea, kept him going. The route home was familiar, yet unnerving in its emptiness. No streetlights, no passing cars, just the faint hum of his engine and the occasional rustle of wind through the trees. Mike's drive usually took about 40 minutes, but tonight it felt longer. The fog was so dense that his headlights barely penetrated the darkness, reducing his visibility to mere feet ahead. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel and leaned forward, squinting at the road. About 20 minutes from home, he noticed something unusual. Through the thick fog, a faint light flickered, small and erratic, like someone waving a flashlight. His first thought was that it might be someone in trouble, perhaps a broken-down car or a pedestrian lost in the mist. Slowing down, he rolled his window down slightly, trying to get a better look. The light flickered again, but as he approached, it suddenly vanished, swallowed by the fog. Mike frowned. Maybe it was just a trick of the light or his tired eyes playing games. But then, just as he rounded a bend, an old sedan pulled out from the shoulder, cutting directly in front of him. Mike slammed on the brakes, his tires screeching against the wet pavement. His car skidded slightly before coming to a jarring halt, barely avoiding a full collision. The sedan, however, wasn't so lucky. Its rear bumper scraped against Mike's front fender, leaving a noticeable dent. Mike's heart was pounding as he sat frozen in his seat. The sedan was ancient, its paint faded and flaking, with one taillight flickering faintly. Slowly, the driver's door creaked open, and a man stepped out. The man looked to be in his late 40s or early 50s, with a scruffy beard and wild, unkempt hair. He was wearing a heavy coat that seemed 2 sizes too big, and his movements were jerky, almost nervous. He didn't immediately approach Mike's car. Instead, he lingered by his own vehicle, glancing around as if expecting someone, or something, to emerge from the fog. Mike hesitated, his instincts urging him to stay in the car, but his sense of responsibility got the better of him. Taking a deep breath, he opened his door and stepped out into the cold night air. "Hey, are you okay?" Mike called, his voice cutting through the eerie stillness. The man finally looked at him, but there was something unsettling about his gaze. He avoided direct eye contact, his eyes darting around like a trapped animal's. "Just checking the damage," the man mumbled, his voice low and gravelly. Mike glanced at the cars. His fender was scratched, but it wasn't anything serious. "It's not too bad," he said. "We can exchange insurance info if you want." The man didn't respond. Instead, he shuffled toward the back of his car, his head still turning side to side, as if he were watching for something. That's when Mike noticed movement in the sedan. The back door was slightly ajar, and a shadow shifted inside. Mike's stomach twisted. Was someone else in the car? His mind raced with possibilities. A passenger, maybe someone injured? Before he could say anything, the back door opened fully, and another figure stepped out. This one was larger, wearing a hood that obscured their face. They moved slowly, deliberately, and the air seemed to grow heavier with each step. A surge of adrenaline shot through Mike. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to get back in his car and leave, but his legs felt frozen. Is everything okay?" he stammered, his voice trembling. The first man didn't answer. He turned slightly, as if to say something to the hooded figure, but no words came out. That was enough for Mike. He He didn't need to stick around to find out what was going on. Backing away slowly, he muttered, "I think we're good here. I'll take care of the damage myself." As soon as he was close enough to his car, he jumped in, slamming the door and locking it in one swift motion. The two figures watched him, their faces unreadable in the fog. Mike didn't waste a second. He threw the car into reverse, maneuvering around the sedan, and sped off down the road. His hands were trembling so badly that he struggled to keep the wheel steady. A few miles later, he spotted a gas station, a beacon of light and safety in the oppressive darkness. Pulling in, he parked near the entrance and sat there for a moment, trying to catch his breath. His heart was still racing, and his mind replayed the encounter over and over. Who were those people? What had they been planning? After a few minutes, he got out and inspected his car. The damage was minimal, just a small dent and some paint transfer. But that wasn't what concerned him. He scanned the road, half expecting to see the old sedan pulling in behind him. It didn't. Inside the gas station, Mike grabbed a cup of coffee and debated what to do. Should he call the police? Report the incident? But what would he say? That a creepy man and a hooded figure scared him off? That wouldn't sound credible. In the end, he decided against it. He didn't want to deal with the hassle or the questions. But as he drove the remaining distance home, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The fog seemed thicker than before, and every shadow along the roadside looked like it might spring to life. For weeks after, Mike couldn't stop thinking about that night. What if he'd stayed longer? What if he'd ignored his instincts? The thought chilled him to the core, and though he tried to put it out of his mind, one question lingered. How many others had driven that same road, only to encounter that flickering light and never made it home? Story 2. The Truck Driver's Midnight Encounter. Jake had been a truck driver for almost a decade, hauling cargo across countless miles of highways and back roads. He'd seen his fair share of strange sights on the road, unusual weather, bizarre accidents, and once, even a naked man jogging down the shoulder of I-70 in the middle of winter. Nothing surprised him anymore, or so he thought. It was late December, and Jake was driving a long-haul delivery through the Midwest. His cargo was straightforward, crates of electronics destined for a warehouse on the outskirts of St. Louis. The route was uneventful at first, the kind of monotonous drive that lulled him into a steady rhythm. By 1 a.m., Jake found himself on a nearly deserted stretch of highway. The world around him was quiet, illuminated only by his headlights and the occasional flicker of a passing road sign. His rig hummed steadily, a comforting sound in the otherwise eerie stillness of the night. Then, in his side mirror, he saw it, a car. It was an old, rusty white sedan, and it had crept up behind him without warning. At first, Jake thought nothing of it. Drivers occasionally tailed trucks for a bit before passing. But this car didn't pass. Instead, it lingered in his blind spot, uncomfortably close to the side of his trailer. Jake frowned, checking his mirrors again. The car wasn't just hanging back, it was weaving slightly, like the driver was either drunk or trying to get his attention. What the hell is this guy doing? Jake muttered to himself. He tapped his brakes lightly, hoping the car would back off or overtake him, but it didn't. Instead, it matched his speed, staying stubbornly in his blind spot. Jake's unease grew. He'd heard stories from other drivers about highway robberies, small cars tailing big rigs, waiting for the right moment to strike. But those stories always seemed like urban legends. Until now. After a few minutes, Jake decided to take matters into his own hands. Spotting a rest area up ahead, he signaled and pulled off the highway, guiding his rig into the dimly lit parking lot. The car followed. Jake parked his truck near the entrance, leaving his engine running. The sedan pulled in a few spaces away, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Jake could see the silhouette of the driver, a wiry man who seemed to be watching him intently. For a moment, they just sat there, locked in a strange, silent standoff. Jake grabbed his flashlight and stepped out of the cab, pretending to inspect his tires. He didn't want to seem confrontational, but he needed to figure out what this guy wanted. As he walked around the truck, he kept one eye on the sedan. The man inside didn't move. Finally, Jake had had enough. "Hey," he called out, his voice echoing in the still night. "You need something?" The driver didn't respond. Instead, the sedan's engine roared to life, and the car peeled out of the lot, disappearing back onto the highway. Jake stood there for a moment, heart pounding. He didn't know whether to feel relieved or more unnerved. After a few minutes, he climbed back into the cab and resumed his route, keeping a close eye on his mirrors. The highway was empty again, but Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the car might still be out there, waiting for the right moment to return. 2 hours later, just as Jake was starting to relax, a loud bang jolted him from his thoughts. It sounded like something had struck the back of his trailer. Jake's heart leapt into his throat. Was it a tire blowout? Or something worse? Pulling onto the shoulder, Jake grabbed his flashlight and reluctantly stepped out into the cold night air. The highway was silent, the kind of quiet that made his ears ring. He walked cautiously toward the back of the trailer, scanning the area with his light. At first, everything seemed normal. The trailer was intact, the tires were fine. But then he saw it. Movement in the shadows near the rear of the truck. "Hey!" Jake shouted, his voice cutting through the darkness. The beam of his flashlight caught a figure, a man crouched low, fiddling with the latch on the trailer door. The man froze, his face obscured by a hood. For a split second, they stared at each other, and then the man bolted, disappearing into the darkness along the side of the road. Jake's adrenaline surged. He climbed back into the cab and locked the doors, his mind racing. What had that guy been trying to do? Was he working alone, or was this part of something bigger? Jake stayed parked on the shoulder for a while, his headlights illuminating the empty road ahead. He considered calling the police but decided against it. The man was long gone, and Jake couldn't imagine what they'd do with so little information. Eventually, he resumed his journey, though he couldn't shake the lingering paranoia. Every car that approached in his mirrors made his heart race, and every shadow along the roadside seemed to move. By the time he reached the warehouse at dawn, Jake was exhausted, not just physically, but mentally. When he inspected the trailer in the daylight, he found fresh scuff marks near the latch, as if someone had been trying to pry it open. The sight made his skin crawl. Whoever that man was, he hadn't been looking for a ride. He'd been looking for something inside. For weeks after, Jake couldn't stop thinking about that night. He started double-checking his locks, parking only in well-lit areas, and keeping a baseball bat in the cab. And though he kept driving, the road never felt the same again. That night on the highway was a stark reminder that no matter how many miles you've driven, there's always something, or someone, out there waiting to surprise you. Story 3. Trapped in Chicago's South Side. Lisa loved concerts. There was something magical about the energy of a live performance. The roar of the crowd, the pulsing bass, the feeling of being part of something bigger. She and her 3 closest friends had been planning this night for weeks, hyped to see one of their favorite bands perform in downtown Chicago. The concert had been everything they hoped for. Incredible music, electric energy, and the kind of memories that make you laugh even years later. By the time it ended, it was nearly midnight, and the 4 friends piled into Lisa's car, still buzzing with excitement as they relived the best moments of the show. Lisa drove, her best friend Alyssa rode shotgun, and their 2 guy friends, Tyler and Marcus, squeezed into the back. The plan was simple: head back to the suburbs via the highway, grab some late-night fast food, and call it a night. But Chicago traffic had other plans. The streets near the venue were a gridlocked mess, with cars barely crawling forward as concertgoers and late-night commuters fought to get through. After 15 minutes of inching along, Marcus suggested an alternative. Why don't we take the side streets? We can cut through the south side and hop back on the highway once we're past all this mess. Lisa hesitated. She wasn't super familiar with the south side, and its reputation wasn't exactly reassuring. But Marcus pulled up a map on his phone, and the route seemed straightforward enough. Against her better judgment, she agreed, turning off the main road and into the quieter, narrower streets. At first, the detour seemed like a great idea. The streets were nearly empty, a stark contrast to the chaos they'd just left behind. Lisa's GPS guided her through a maze of intersections, each one quieter than the last. But as they drove deeper into the neighborhood, the atmosphere began to change. Streetlights became fewer and farther between, casting long, eerie shadows across the cracked pavement. The houses were dark and silent, their windows like black holes. Occasionally, they'd pass a group of people standing on a corner or sitting on a stoop, their eyes tracking the car as it rolled by. Is it just me, or does it feel like everyone's staring at us? Alyssa whispered, her voice tight with unease. It's not just you, Tyler replied, leaning forward to get a better look at their surroundings. "Let's just keep moving." Lisa nodded, gripping the wheel a little tighter. She kept her speed steady, resisting the urge to floor it and draw even more attention to their out-of-place car. Then, up ahead, the road was blocked. An old sedan was parked diagonally across the street, its hazard lights flashing. Two men stood near it, one leaning casually against the hood, the other pacing back and forth. "What the hell?" Lisa muttered, slowing to a stop a few yards away. "Just back up," Marcus said, his tone calm but firm. "We'll take another street." Lisa shifted into reverse and started backing away, keeping an eye on the sedan in her rearview mirror. As she turned onto a side street, her stomach sank. Another car, an equally beat-up vehicle, was blocking the next intersection. This time, 3 men were standing near it, their faces shadowed but unmistakably focused on the approaching car. Lisa stopped, her heart hammering in her chest. "This is bad," Alyssa said, her voice shaking. One of the men stepped forward, raising a hand in what might have been a friendly wave under different circumstances. He motioned for Lisa to roll down her window. "Don't," Tyler said immediately. But before Lisa could react, the man was at her door, tapping on the window. "Hey, where you guys headed?" he asked, his tone casual but carrying an edge that made Lisa's skin crawl. We're just passing through," Lisa stammered, her hand hovering over the gear shift. Before the man could reply, another one of them moved to the back door, grabbing the handle and yanking it. The locks held, but the sound of the attempt sent a wave of panic through the car. "Drive," Marcus shouted. Lisa didn't need to be told twice. She slammed the car into reverse, the tires squealing as she backed away from the blockade. The man at her window pounded on the glass, yelling something she couldn't hear over her own heartbeat. As she turned to escape, one of the attackers reached through the cracked rear window. His arm got caught for a moment as Lisa hit the gas, pulling the car out of reach. The group didn't chase them, at least not on foot. Lisa floored it, weaving through the maze of side streets until they finally found an open path back to the highway. The moment they merged onto the interstate, the tension in the car broke, everyone talking at once. "Who were they?" Alyssa asked, her voice trembling. "Doesn't matter," Tyler said. "We're out of there." Lisa's hands were still shaking as she gripped the wheel. She didn't say much, focusing on putting as much distance as possible between them and the neighborhood. They stopped at a brightly lit gas station miles away, all of them too rattled to even think about food. Tyler checked the doors to make sure none of them had been damaged, and Lisa called her parents to let them know she'd be home late. Looking back, they all agreed on one thing. Keeping the doors locked had likely saved their lives. For weeks after, Lisa replayed the encounter in her head. She couldn't stop thinking about the men, their expressions, and what might have happened if she'd hesitated even a moment longer. The group never took that shortcut again, and Lisa made a point to avoid unfamiliar neighborhoods altogether. That night taught her a lesson she would never forget. When something feels wrong, it probably is. And there you have it, 3 terrifying stories of night trips gone wrong. Whether it's a mysterious light in the fog, a shadowy figure stalking the highway, or a chilling encounter in an unfamiliar neighborhood, these tales remind us how unpredictable and dangerous the night can be. What makes these stories so haunting is how quickly the ordinary, just driving home, working a late-night route, or finding a faster way out of traffic, can spiral into the extraordinary. They serve as a stark reminder. Trust your instincts, stay alert, and always have a plan to keep yourself safe. If you enjoyed these real-life horror stories and want more spine-tingling content, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Have you ever experienced something strange or unsettling during a late-night trip? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. Thanks for watching, and remember, the night holds more than just shadows. Stay safe, and until next time, take care out there.